I hope you're having a good summer. Let me tell you that I started June with a kidney stone operation. My brother came for my birthday, brought COVID to our house. It's been a great summer. Thank you. I'm going to start, and since we have a lot of new people here, for our consultant team primarily, but also basically for the general public, I want to do the roll call. I'm going to ask you to do just a very short bio of who you are, your interests, or your representation, whatever. So I'll do it first just to show you what I'm thinking of. I'm Dave Davis. I'm currently the chair of this committee. I was the community development director and city planner for 25 years in the city of Santa Barbara. I headed the Community Environmental Council for a decade, working on energy issues. I now chair the MTD, Metropolitan Transit District, and sit as a member of the city's Water Commission. Ken, you want to go next?
Announcement about how to use these so that it works through Zoom. Oh. Hi. All these microphones, as you can see, will be sharing. You really got to get up into it so that the people on the internet and on city TV can hear you. Otherwise, if I'm back here, the PA will pick it up, but it won't go through the computer. So just, grab it and speak right into it. And you'll press this button, it'll turn green, and then you'll know it's on.
We got it. Is that better? Okay, Ken, hit that note.
Good afternoon and hi everyone. I'm Ken Saxon. I've been in Santa Barbara for 25 years. I'm particularly connected in the nonprofit and philanthropic community here, and I'm proud to be vice chair of this committee.
Diane? Well, I'm going on my list. It's easier.
That's fine. I'm Diane Black. I was with the county planning department for 35 years. I retired about 3 years ago as the director. I'm here representing the League of Women Voters, and I have my own interests as well. I'm very much a user of State Street and want to see it improve.
Great, thank you. Hillary.
Hi, everybody. Hillary Blackerby. I am one of the at-large members in my day job. I work here at Santa Barbara MTD as the planning and marketing manager, and I'm also a member of the Transportation and Circulation Committee for about the past 13 years or so. And yeah, excited to get it going.
Great, thank you. Roxana, she's online.
Yes, hi, thank you. May I ask Ms. Walters to allow me to turn on my video?
Roxana, we'll figure that out in just a moment. Okay. Give me 1 second.
All right, well, I'll continue without it. You can see my image on the screen. Hi, everybody, welcome back. Nice to see you all. I can see you, you can't see me. I am a member of the Planning Commission. I hold the Planning Commission liaison seat for this committee, but I come with a background of, I have a master's degree in architecture and urban design and city planning. I have my own private practice. I practice planning and land use and architecture design within the city of Santa Barbara and the county of Santa Barbara, the wider county. I taught language at a number of the different international language schools for 19 years before COVID closed down a lot of the schools, and they're not quite up to full par yet. So I'm not doing that anymore. But I also have been, I founded and run a nonprofit organization in Santa Barbara, in the larger area of Santa Barbara County, since 2008. So I have my many hats on. I represent many different age groups and many different areas. I'm really happy to be here. And my video finally came on, so I'll just wave and say hi. Nice to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger, where are you, man?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I'm in Spain and I'm in Asturias and it's 1 a.m. in the morning. Hello to everybody. I run the Santa Barbara Film Festival, and I also teach full-time at Santa Barbara City College, which starts in 2 weeks. excited about that. And also, if you guys pick up the current Independent, the cover story was written by me. And I encourage you to read that because it's a wonderful artist, Angela Perko, that she is one of our greatest artists and she needs all the recognition that is coming her way. And I'm very proud to be here. I'm excited for what's to come. And thank you, Dave.
Thank you for making the extra effort there, Roger. Here, you get a special gold star, my friend. Nadra, I think she's also online. Nadra.
Yes, hello everyone. And I'm also, I am coming from Portugal, so kind of close to Roger right now. Just visiting, and I am with the Tobes Group in the residential department. I worked there for a number of years and currently serve as the Director of Sustainability and the organization. I've been involved in various community organizations throughout my time in Santa Barbara, the last 13 years or so, and just really excited to be a part of this group and to be here and to bring my efforts to the State Street endeavor. So
Great, thank you very much. I will entertain a motion to hold our next meeting on the Iberian Peninsula.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Robin.
My name is Robin Elander. I'm currently serving as the Executive Director for Downtown Santa Barbara. We support and promote about 1,400 businesses in the downtown district. Excited to get this going. I've also, through my consulting organization, put on many different projects, initiatives, events, programs in the downtown core over many years. And one of my roles in the community has been the executive director for the Summer Solstice Celebration Parade and Festival for the last 8 years. Excited to get this project going, everybody.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Robin. Ed.
I'm a retired architect, had a practice in Santa Barbara for 35 years and sold that about 10 years ago. I represent the Historic Landmarks Commission on the State Street Advisory Committee.
Peter.
Hey everybody, Peter Lewis, came to Santa Barbara in '82, been an entrepreneur all my life, started off manufacturing clothing on State Street, on the 400 block of State Street, when it was the cheapest manufacturing space in town. Since then, I've done some other apparel companies and have more recently, in the last 25 years, done a series of developments in the Western United States, but a lot here in Santa Barbara, mostly mixed use, which entail housing and some commercial. And principally been involved in the 300, 400, and 600 block of State.
Great, thank you, Peter. Kristen.
Good afternoon. I'm Kristen Miller, President and CEO of the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce, representing about 1,000 members and 75,000 jobs on the South Coast. I've been doing this work about 20 years with an emphasis on economic development and projects that improve the local economy and jobs.
Great, thank you. Suzanne.
Hello, my name is Suzanne Tejada. I am a practicing architect here in Santa Barbara since 2002. I grew up in Goleta, so I consider myself a local. I have a special interest in urban design and development, and I'm also a member of the Access Advisory Committee, and accessibility and ADA is very important. I also have a disability, so I experience it firsthand. Anyway, I'm glad to be here, and thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Megan Harmon and Jack Harmon.
Very much, Chair. I'm Megan Harmon. I'm a member of the Santa Barbara City Council, and this is our smallest city council member, Jack. I represent downtown on the city council. That includes a large chunk of State Street, so exactly what we're talking about here. Very, very excited and grateful to all of you for your ongoing commitment to this, and looking forward to all the exciting discussions to come.
You don't get 2 votes, you only get 1.5. Sorry. Michael.
District 2 council member, 12-time world champ, 6-time MVP. I probably thinking of that other guy. Sorry. Former planning commissioner, water commissioner, Creeks Advisory Board member. My claim to fame, though, in my heart is I'm the third of 5 generations to live in our house on the Mesa. So I live a life of immaturity well below my age.
I could validate that. Our 2 alternates, Michael Becker.
The chair, my name is Mike Becker. My day job, I'm the director of planning for SBCAG, which is the regional agency. But I'm also a resident of Santa Barbara, and more importantly, I'm father of 2 young girls. And I think my interest in this ultimately came from making sure that we're setting it up for the next generation.
Great. And Marge, lastly.
My name is Marge Caffarelli, and my company is Urban Developments. Over the last 35 years, we've master planned and or developed about 3.5 million square feet of residential in the Bay Area. In San Francisco, in San Francisco, Oakland, and Walnut Creek, where the projects were. In Santa Barbara, we developed Alma del Pueblo and the Santa Barbara Public Market. That project was completed in 2014, of which I have sold the market. And so I am an interested citizen of Santa Barbara. I don't have any real estate holdings in Santa Barbara. And I think that this is a once in a generation opportunity for Santa Barbara to do what, in my opinion, has been needed to have been done really over the last 10 years. It's a beautiful community that I think we have a unique opportunity, and I'm really just delighted that MIG has been selected to do the work, because I think you're uniquely positioned to do exactly what needs to be done in a community just like Santa Barbara. So welcome, and I look forward to working with the team from MIG.
Great, thank you. We do have one absence. That is Councilmember Alejandra Gutierrez of the 1st District. Alejandra is not here right now. I would note for the record that Mayor Rouse is in the audience as a general member of the public, not here to basically partake, but simply to listen to our deliberations in that regard.
Yeah, Randy.
So with that, I'm going to ask Tess if there are any announcements at this point.
Thank you, Chair Davis. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Blackerby. Hillary, did you want to just make a quick announcement on the space? And before I do turn it over to Hillary, I also just wanted to extend thanks to MTD for letting us use this space. It is challenging finding a meeting room for a group of this size, and I think this has worked out really well, so thank you.
The host, just a housekeeping item, there's 2 restrooms if you go out the door and to the left. They're over there if you need those, and exits are in each corner should anything happen, but thanks for being here.
Thank you. That takes us to opening remarks, and strangely enough, today I do have an opening remark after our pause for the summer. Let me give a brief remark, and I'll take some discretion as chair. 100 years ago, Pearl Chase and her Plans and Planting Committee put together a plan for downtown Santa Barbara. A couple years later, the 1925 earthquake gave the opportunity to actually implement that vision for downtown. That vision carried through to the city's general plan in 1964. It carried through actually to the redevelopment agency's plans for downtown in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. And I postulate that today we are actually undergoing another earthquake. But this one is an economic earthquake of the 21st century. The retail market, as you all know, is changing radically even before the pandemic. Big boxes in Goleta itself, and all the growth that's happened out there. Very frankly, I go to movies out there rather than downtown. Hate to admit that, but they're nice theaters. The funk zone came into play. And then we all have the Amazon effect of online marketing and what have you. So the retail market is totally changed and is changing as we speak today. Then along came COVID and the crash that came with the pandemic. Nothing that I had ever seen in my career. It's changed everything. It's changed even the nature of work. And we don't really even know what the next decade, how that will totally play out. So my question is always, what's the next disaster change or realization that we need to do and take into account in our visioning? But going back to Pearl and her vision and her group, the Plans and Planning Committee, Bernard Hoffman, and all those people, they had a vision. And that vision, as I say, played out really over 100 years from what they envisioned back in the early 20s. This is our community's Pearl Chase moment, right? It really is. During the council hearing on the consultant selection, Ken, Robin, and I and others spoke of the amount of excitement that we had to be part of this moment in our city's future. Mr. Mayor, I think you missed your Pearl Chase moment when you talked about the interim operations and what have you there. That's been very confusing to the public. What's happening with interim operations versus long-term visioning. You recall tests from the very beginning showed us two tracks. There was an interim operations track and there was the long-term visioning. And the whole question of parklets and maintenance and lighting and public safety, those are very important issues today. They will be very important issues long-term too. But those are the current issues, which again, you tried to address in your council hearing the other day. The public is, I think, very confused. Let's be really clear. There are two tracks. The interim operations, the lighting, the public safety, the parklets, the rents, all of those issues, they're being dealt with by the council's ad hoc committee on State Street. Mr. Jordan here is the chair of, I think you're the chair, I don't know. You're our member that basically sits on that particular one. My understanding is they're going to be reporting back to council on all of these issues as they started their discussion in June with council, reporting back in September. We're about to kick off a major community engagement for the future. So let's be really clear. Interim operations, ad hoc committee, and city council. Long-term vision, State Street Advisory Committee, and ultimately the city council. Like I said, this will be our Pearl Chase moment as a community. As I expressed to council the other day, I hope you're as excited as I am, because this is going to be cool. I'm ready for it. So let's get to work. Agenda review. The approval of the minutes. We'll do public comment, come back to our main item, which is the process and public engagement for completing the State Street Master Plan. What we're going to do here is do an overview by staff of what's going on, introduce the MIG and their team. We're going to have a discussion of successful streets and an SSAC, State Street Advisory Committee, round robin, where you get to talk to us about your likes and dislikes of what you've seen on State Street to date, your hopes and goals for the future, your vision for the future for State Street. And believe it, we're going to ask you to do that within two minutes. So be concise, please. I will cut you off if you're taking too long. There's too many of us to go any farther. We're then going to go into a discussion of roles and responsibilities going forward. And I will take public comment, general public comment at the end on this particular item from the public. We'll adjourn and talk about when our next meeting's going to be. So with that, I'm looking for the approval of the minutes from April 18th, 2022. Are any questions? Any comments?
I make
Go
a
ahead.
Second.
no.
Roger,
I just make a
I have a
move.
motion and a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Roll call vote. You want me to do that?
Aye.
Hillary Blackerby,
Aye.
Roxana Bonderson,
Aye.
Roger Durling,
C.
Nadra Ehrman,
Aye.
Robin Elander, Alejandro Gutierrez,
He's absent.
Megan Harmon, Mike Jordan, Ed Lenvik,
Yes.
Peter Lewis, Kristen Miller, Suzanne Tejada, Chair Davis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Saxon.
Minutes are approved. Greta, do we have anyone under general public comment? This is comments from the public on items within the purview of SSAC, but not on the agenda today. Since everything's on the agenda, that's pretty tough. But do we have anyone who wishing to speak from the public under this item?
So starting with people in the room, feel free to bring me any blue slips you'd like to give me if you would like to make public comment. Or raise a hand. I'm seeing none. And looking over to the participants online, please raise your hand if you wish to make a public comment. To do that, click the hand icon. If you're connecting by phone, press *9 to raise or lower your hand. Press *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And there are no raised hands online.
Great, thanks very much. That will take us to item 3A, our main agenda item, process and public engagement for completing the State Street Master Plan. Tess, you want to introduce this item?
Sure. I'll stand up just to say hello to everybody. It's really nice to be back with all of you now in August and really kicking off in earnest. I'm particularly excited to have MIG on board, so I wanted to just really give them a warm welcome. I've had the pleasure of getting to meet Daniel and McCool and Ryan, who are the main MIG team members with us today. I'm looking forward to the next year and a half with the team. Daniel is the CEO and CFO of MIG. He's the principal on this project. Daniel's the I in MIG, so pretty exciting to have him with us. McCool is the project manager. He's the director of urban design for MIG. McCool is going to be wonderful to work with. Really happy to have him. And same with Ryan. Ryan is the deputy project manager with MIG. And these are three of many team members, and they'll get into their team in a moment. I want to just take a step back because we started this process, about a year ago, almost exactly. The committee was formed back in August. I was hired shortly after that, and started to get going with this missing piece. So we're finally here. We've got the full team on board, and we're really going to be moving forward in the next 18 months. And they'll go through the process graphic with you that just clearly outlines what we're targeting in terms of a timeline. But it means that all of us need to engage and be on board. And I'm just thrilled to be here with all of you. I think we're gonna be doing a lot in a pretty short amount of time. So it's exciting. And really with that, I just want to turn it over to MIG and have them kick us off.
Thank you all. I'm Daniel Isofano, one of the founding principals of MIG. And I just want to say it's an honor and privilege to be working with all of you on behalf of our entire MIG team. In addition to McCool and Ryan, you see the group up here. We'll have Esmeralda Garcia, Noe Noyola, and many other people on board. We have sub-consultants that are excellent in their respective fields, including economics, transportation, and other disciplines as well. So we bring a lot to the table, but I also want to congratulate the City Council for bringing you all to the literal table. Quite an impressive group and a lot of background, a lot of experience here in the city of Santa Barbara. I, for one, am happy to be here again, having worked over the years on a variety of projects, starting with the general plan in the 80s, I believe. It's been that long. And that was a real exciting and dramatic planning effort, and very successful, I think, in setting a course for long-term future direction of the city. But I want to say, again, we have a lot to learn. We are at a listening stage. We're here to listen today. We are going to do a brief presentation and overview of some of our work, some of the streets you may have seen around the world, others you may have enjoyed here in the United States. And we're excited to present those to you as a way to help frame the conversation that we're going to have together this afternoon. And so with that, I'd like to have Mukul Mohatra to take us through the main slide presentation. All right, Mukul.
Thanks, Daniel. I have to say I've never held something like this in my hand, but that's what makes this one of the many reasons it makes this project unique. But seriously, along with the different team members within MIG that Daniel mentioned, we also have strategic economics led by Dina Belzer, who is going to lead the economic development, which is the key critical component of this project. And we also have Fair and Peers who are going to help us with overall transportation and multimodal circulation, again, a critical component of this project. This clearly is a project, having learned from the RFP and different materials that we saw and read, is a strategic, community-based, human-centric design approach that basically builds on a very sound economic strategy, builds on a very strong community need foundation that in turn we hope will generate a lot of ideas, different activities that in turn will help create different flexible temporal programming and design concepts for the area, again, based on community feedback that will get refined, and we will come up with preferred concepts, keeping that in mind, which then helps us create a great street for State Street, which we deserve nothing less. So that's what we need to do. We are clearly heard the number one thing you all said you want to see in State Street is make it experiential. We clearly believe it. This is, of course, Las Ramblas, which has a diverse set of activities. We have also helped create different streets in different parts of the country. This is Bell Street that MIG helped design. It is now a multimodal, highly multi-activities, human-centric oriented street, making it accessible, making it sure that it means people of all ages and abilities is critical for it to be a successful street. And that includes making it equitable, thinking about children, thinking of people who use the cane, the wheelchair, but people again of all ages and incomes, making sure they all feel as equal users of the street is critical. Sustainability, we have heard again and again, is critical. Again, this is Bell Street in Seattle, where key part of the sustainability was integrating stormwater management, but including sustainability to the next level of reusing the materials and also making it financially sustainable so that it would allow for a wide variety of activities used for different uses at different types of the day and encourage a huge amount of private investment into the street, including the city's commitments to improving this area. And then last, one of the other key things is to make sure we make this a world-class destination that is designed for locals. We clearly have heard and we know if you design for locals, you'll still get the tourists from all over the world, which is what State Street gets. But at the same time, you also get the people who live and work in this wonderful community. And it should be a place where you can make stories, you can make memories, and make it memorable to tell stories to your children, your grandchildren, your friends, and your neighbors. And each street has a story to tell. We want to learn from you. What is that story that we should be telling as we look at different ideas and concepts for State Street? Another example is Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena. By the way, the previous one was First Street Mall in Long Beach, which is again a multimodal great street in Long Beach. And then this one is in Colorado Boulevard, where we really worked in the last 2-3 years on having inclusive planning that would explore different concepts for Colorado Boulevard that helped come up with a very strategic strategy of what do we do now with very short-term improvements, be it signage and striping it, taking it to the next level with first set of permanent improvements while still keeping the door open of converting the boulevard into a festival street. And that's the list of ideas we want to hear from you. What do you would like to see on State Street? Another example is the different network of streets that we have worked in downtown San Antonio. As you all know, it's one of the most historic cities with over 400 years of history. It has a wide variety of streets, and the aim was to look at different ways to create flexible streets for different types of streets so they could function in different ways, in different times of the day, different times of the year, and respond to different needs and land uses all along the corridors. It allows for a wide variety of uses to happen depending upon if it's a weekend, a weekday, a weeknight. And in the case of San Antonio, they do love to dance on the street. That's what they told us when we were engaging with them. And when we opened the first set of streets, that is the simulation becoming a reality of showing you that's what they began to do. And they continue to do that where some of their local streets allow for wide modes of travel, but with the use of retractable bollards, they get closed depending upon when the need of the street is. We would like to know from you, what is your vision? Like Dave said, like to know what is working, what is not working, what are your hopes for the street? And build on the different objectives as well as the overall visioning principles that the City Council and this committee itself clearly articulated, including making sure we revitalize the downtown, we make sure we create a safe experience that is primed for economic revitalization. At the core of it, it is people-centric, allows for housing downtown, and recaptures and reestablishes downtown's identity so that we bring people downtown and we design it for locals. Again, what the RFP said and what this committee has again clearly articulated, we do want to build on the goals and objectives and hear from you. Do you want to build on them? How do you want to add to them, including creating a sense of place that the entire community wants, reimagining the people of all abilities to travel and thereby experience different parts of downtown, and identify solutions that bring vitality to state streets, emphasize experiential and outdoor uses, especially of a number of outdoor uses that we see in different blocks, and learn from past and approach issues holistically, be it from a transportation perspective, an economic perspective, or a land use perspective. And then again, recapturing and reestablishing downtown's identity where housing is a critical component, and making sure we are integrating and allowing for the supportive infrastructure uses or elements to make this dream into a reality. And with that, I will request Daniel to take us through the first part of the discussion.
Thank you, Mukul. So we're going to turn this over to all of you and do around the horn. And we'd love to get your feedback on each of the following items. And you can pick one or more of these, but as Dave laid out at the beginning, trying to keep it within a 2-minute comment, initially at least, so we can hear from everybody and still have time to conclude our agenda for this afternoon. So we're interested in hearing from this grand experiment of having closed State Street, which is a bold move in and of itself, very impressive that the community rallied against what was clearly major threats and uncertainty happening because of the pandemic and all the other forces that Dave referred to earlier. What is working? What have we observed? What's not working? We need to learn from this experiment before we start making any kind of long-term improvements on State Street. What do you like or dislike about it? That's another way of asking maybe the same thing. What are your hopes for the future? What would you especially want to accomplish? And if there was one thing that you want to get out of this master planning process, we'd love to hear your thoughts about that. And again, keeping to the 2-minute comment period. So Dave wanted me to emphasize that. And you have great chairs here with Dave and Ken, and we're going to do our best to work as a team to really work with you on this committee process and have some really exciting, robust conversations. We could turn the lights back on now for this portion. McCool and Ryan will be taking notes up here on the big board. We like to use that method of real-time graphic note-taking so we can see the record being made and the comments and how they add up and form ultimately a tapestry of ideas and concepts that we can then take back to our office and studio and begin to apply different ideas. We're a storehouse of options, and I really want to stress that we're here as a mediator, a medium by which you can express your ideas, and our job is to convert that into workable street design ideas, schematics, programming elements, all of which are the ingredients of a successful street. So we're going to start going around the table, and anyone is welcome to raise their hand. We'll just do, okay, counterclockwise. We'll start with Michael, and I've got your microphone, so I'm going to hand it back to you. All right, take it away, Mike.
Thanks. And I was trying to jot some notes down, and I'll be quicker than 2 minutes. A couple things. So dislikes. I think in general, downtown focuses too much on the past and not enough being forward-looking. I think that the development control in Santa Barbara, and particularly downtown, is in excess of what Disney does to design its main street, and that should change. I think ultimately that more organic development, in my opinion, would be better. I think a lot of great places are defined by organic development.
Mm-hmm.
I think we fashion ourselves as a European city, but we're afraid of European densities. And also, I think currently that it's focused too much on tourists. And there's that paradigm, as Nicole said, that if you design it for residents and residents love it, then the tourists will like it too. And I think that's the focus. It needs to be designed for the people of Santa Barbara and attractive to tourists.
Mm-hmm.
Hope, just for a livable downtown, back to the last point, that's designed for residents and desirable for residents, yet still attractive to tourists.
If I could follow up, you mentioned the word organic. Could you say a little bit more? What would you describe as organic, or you could use an example?
Yeah, I think just in general that I think development should be reflective of the time that it's developed. And I understand that there's a process in place that keeps Santa Barbara the way it is. I think if you leave Santa Barbara, it seems like you see a lot of steel and glass, and you don't see any of that here. I'm not saying that's the right way, but I think a little bit of variety is probably a good thing, at least in my opinion.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. Let's go to Peter next.
To kind of follow up on some of Mike's comments, I'd agree that my hope is that we end up with more of a European look and feel in the end, with higher housing densities that result in more activity of the street during all hours. And I hope we find a way that we can perhaps get more educational traffic downtown and use some of our big undeveloped or underutilized areas and retail areas in particular that are really have to be repurposed entirely. So fundamentally, we have a problem with small parcels up our entire corridor. So our vision has to find a way to overcome that obstacle. And perhaps the biggest single obstacle to making the private organic enterprise work to support the vision is we're going to have to deal with stormwater in a practical, environmental, and economic fashion. And that's got to be part of the puzzle. It can't be ignored as a plan check item. It has to be planned for.
Peter, one more follow-up. You mentioned education. Were you talking about high school, college, university? What
university, yeah,
connections?
University. I think a good strategy for economic development would be to try to get, in the way to activate this downtown before the housing's built, we got to get bodies moving downtown. And education is the one really dynamic, high density solution that could fill in some of our big retail boxes that are producing not one person on the street at this moment.
Interesting. Yeah, to utilize some of those big spaces to house educational programs, maybe higher ed, maybe branch centers from UC Santa Barbara and so on.
Yeah, Westmont recently has started to bought a building. It's a small local liberal arts college, and I think that's really showing foresight. And there's a big opportunity downtown. We've got some huge floor plates that are empty, and education is the one growing industry that's a very vital industry in our town.
I hadn't heard that before, so thank you for that additional point. Ed is next up.
Thank you. I think I hear what Michael is saying about organic, but I think we need to keep in mind that downtown Santa Barbara is, the character of it is driven by the charter, the city charter. And we're going to bump up against a lot of, I think, pushback if we decide that we want to change the architectural character of downtown. I think high density will work with the charter limitations. I think that other kinds of uses such as education will work with other within the charter limitations. But I think we need to keep in mind that, as Dave Davis said, we started out with a vision in 1924, 25 that has permeated downtown and has, I believe, made downtown and made Santa Barbara actually a very desirable place to visit, to shop, so on and so forth. It was going the right direction before COVID. And if we look at it now, as a guest that I had at my house this weekend when we walked State Street, it has become shabby. And I think we got to be careful that we don't change the character of Santa Barbara to something which is radically different than what the charter in 1924 vision was. Also, I think, at least I think that you as a planners should be careful about assuming that this committee represents what Santa Barbara wants to be, downtown State Street wants to be. I think this committee is full of a lot of local particular interests and not necessarily what the community as a whole wants to see Santa Barbara State Street become. So, let's hear what they have, what the community has to say when you have the public input.
Sure.
Don't rely on this committee and even me as being the voice of what should be happening downtown.
Good advice, and we intend to have a very robust outreach. But it's interesting, again, how do we reconcile that tradition, the culture, the history, which you speak of, and still introduce new elements? How do we integrate it without undermining or disrupting that character?
I think Peter's comments regarding European character is very, very much what Santa Barbara was going towards before COVID.
Yeah, okay, very good, thank you. All right, Robin, you're up next.
I'm really excited about the possibility of creating some safe and inspired spaces for the diverse users. I want to find a way to keep pedestrians and bikes on the street and having safe ways to navigate the space. Something that's economically viable and a way that attracts business. Sustainable includes art and color in different elements, whether it's some elements of the building, some murals, some aspects of the street. Respects the past, certainly inspires the future, definitely includes lots of housing, a space that allows for world-class events and programming downtown very regularly, and the infrastructure to support that. So the combination of electricity or built space or spaces that people can bring in elements to do things. mixed use spaces. So we have a lot of like bowling alley type spaces that need to be redesigned. And then green sustainable spaces, as you've mentioned before. Those are some of my comments, as well as safe and secure spaces for the public to enjoy.
Very good.
Daniel?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're going to say something. We need to go to Roger and
Okay.
to Nadra, who are over in Portugal in pain. They're not going to be able to be here for
Okay.
all time.
Before we do that, just a minute, I'm going to just ask, Robin, you reminded of festivals. Has anybody been to the Spoleto Festival in Charleston, South Carolina? You have? Amazing. For like 3 weeks, they turned the whole downtown into a performance venue. I mean, it attracts thousands of visitors, and every hotel, every restaurant is filled to the brim. It's an interesting concept that you're,
Festival town, and so
yeah,
renting that, but also adding to that in different ways.
right. And locals too enjoy it. But it's an interesting concept. I'm not promoting it. I'm just, again, throwing out ideas in response to what I'm hearing. So, Roger, go ahead. And you're in Portugal?
Spain.
Yeah.
Spain.
No, I'm in.
España.
Yeah. I'm in Asturias, Spain.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you brought Spoleto, because that was my point that I was going to bring up, is that there is. I'm on my way to Bologna for the film festival, which the whole city turns into an arts event. And there is whatchamacallit, public spaces within the commercial spaces and restaurants for performances. And it's very thriving. The whole city comes alive, not just with the performances that are happening on the street but also with the restaurants, etc. But I wanted to chime in about the educational component, which as I mentioned before, I teach at Santa Barbara City College, and not only do I have a cap as an arts leader, but also education is so important. And the I don't know if you guys know that Santa Barbara City College owns downtown a school for cosmetology, and also the international EFL, the international student. I'm sorry, I'm like, it's 2:00 in the morning over here, and I'm rambling. But
you're doing great. Keep going.
But the international school, which is downtown in Santa Barbara, which is on Chapala and Michel Terena, it brings in so many students from all the world. And if you were to talk to the businesses on that street, including South Coast, Delhi, it just brings so much a thriving, audience,
energy,
and it's super exciting. So I just want to emphasize the aspect of participation, of arts, entertainment, flexible spaces that we could use arts all throughout downtown State Street, not just the Santa Barbara Film Festival and Solstice and Fiesta, but other use the street in a flexible way. And then also the aspect of education. I think it's a key component that hasn't been brought up before. And that's it, guys. I hope you guys are well.
Beautiful. Hey, thank you. Those were fantastic. And anybody who's been to Spain knows the life on the street is second to none. It's unbelievable. So you're speaking from a direct experience there. Thank you very much. Do we have somebody else on?
Yeah, Nadra.
Hi. So yeah, to back up Roger's point, forgive me if I, don't speak in coherent sentences. It's about 1:00 where I am at. But to that point, and to just roll with the European inspiration, that I think, Michael, you mentioned, like, we have that European inspiration in our building and design. and like how can we look for ways to incorporate that density? I think that is an important concept to really include in this. And to the point of Roger and Robin, the art aspect, and definitely Portugal is very similar in Spain. It's just like the streets having those spaces, having this vibrancy that you see every day. And so how can we really incorporate that part of that European inspiration into this design? The other idea is homelessness and housing. We've talked a lot about housing, or we've mentioned how housing has come up, but I just want to put that out there. I know that this isn't a social service agency. That's not necessarily our call, but having some way to come up with a plan, because that is a pain point for business owners, for tourists, for just citizens, everyday citizens, and having those resources for the unhoused population on State Street, so that everyone has their needs met in that respect. Also having the maintenance and management resources for State Street. I know that recently, the parking fee went up so that we could, went up from 150 to 250 so that we would be able to have more resources for that. So just making sure that we have, like I said, the resources for the maintenance and the management of State Street for the department, so that they're not trying to, what's the saying, pay Peter to rob Paul to pay Peter, in order to make sure that the needs of State Street are met. And one thing that I didn't mention, I failed to mention in my bio my introduction, is I'm also a board member of the Community Environmental Council, and I'm on this committee as a representative of that organization. And so always looking at sustainability in our design, looking at climate resiliency. If we're building this out for the next 30, 50 years, what are we doing for drought that's going to continue? What are we doing for looking at possible sea level rise and what that means for our community? And I think that is it. And yeah, art, and more art. And that's all I have.
Okay, well stated. We got it. And thank you for staying up for our meeting and for bringing in those practical elements of maintenance and cleanup. Clean and safe are the bedrocks of all successful streets and American downtowns for sure.
Daniel, you want to stay while we're up here? Roxana, you want to go next?
Okay.
Certainly, thank you. So I'm going to continue on the same theme as our European traveling friends here. I grew up here in Santa Barbara, and a big part of why I'm here in this committee and serving my community as a city planning commissioner as well, is because as a child growing up, as early as I can remember, I was taking scratch paper and drawing cities and drawing spaces. And my parents couldn't really figure out where I was learning this stuff because I wasn't taking classes, and neither of them are architects. But it was literally by walking down State Street. My parents would take us out as we were little, and I would just absorb what I saw and then draw it. And so one of my earliest kind of keepsakes that my parents have kept after all these years was I would take 8.5 sheets of paper, 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and draw what you would consider a map, like bird's eye view. And maybe it wasn't in scale, but the concepts were there, and the streets and the parking lots and the parking spaces and these open urban areas where people would walk. And I mean, it's no wonder I ended up in architecture and urban planning. It was carved out as my dream from a very early age. And the reason I share this story is because I not only had the opportunity as a child to travel, but I ended up studying abroad, getting my bachelor's and eventually my master's abroad in Italy. I did part in Germany. I was down in South America, did a part of my master's in Cuba, and I got to work in practice in architecture in North Africa and Lebanon. So I was all over the place. And what I've heard from the speakers so far, and I I agree, is that we are missing an opportunity to take advantage of the positives that we see from these other communities that have already figured it out, that are doing it really well, that are thriving.
Right.
And we sing we sing the song, but we don't actually put it into practice. And a
Okay.
part of that, I believe, has to do with the fear of change. I think we're always afraid of the unknown. But I can tell you, if you were around when I was a child, if you were around in the early 80s, Santa Barbara doesn't look the same. I mean, there's a natural evolution that every community goes through, whether it be, you know, a business moves out, or we're now online with, you know, with shopping. There's a housing shortage that was there before, but not to this extent.
Okay.
But I think the biggest thing I'd really like to emphasize is what I would like to see, what I'm hoping for as part of this group, is that we really pay attention to safety issues. I don't feel like we're concerned about that when I was younger or just 10 years ago. We have, as you already know, a huge homelessness and sort of vagrancy issue that has really inhibited a lot of the pleasure of being downtown or to feel comfortable. I was downtown just recently, and I, you know, parked parallel, and
Roxana, can you kind of summarize for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Sure. I guess I'll just summarize with a few words. How about this? I'll do a list of words. I'd really love to see safety, the pedestrian experience, as we've all been talking about. I think solving homelessness, cleanliness, maintenance, finding a true heart to our city, whatever that may look like. We don't have a place where we say, I'll meet you in the city center. I'll meet you in that spot, where if you visit Europe, you have that spot in most cities, or at least you have a few spots, but there are places that you just call out by name. That's the city center.
Thanks,
And
Roxanne.
lastly, I would just say inclusivity, that we hit all of our audiences.
Right.
Thank
And
you,
there's a
everyone.
lot we can learn from all those places you mentioned and that
Oh
you've
yes,
experienced.
the mixed
Absolutely.
use, the way that they mix use.
Thank you, Roxana.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
We can thank you. Can we continue around?
Diane.
Diane is next.
Sorry about that. Well, it's hard to come up with thoughts while listening to everybody else. So hopefully this will make a little bit of sense. The things I've liked about State Street most recently is the close street. Having the streets close to traffic has been really nice, and it's sort of evolved over time. In the very beginning, it seems like that's where everybody walked because people didn't want to be next to each other on the sidewalk at the beginning of the pandemic. And now we've got those striped bike paths, and there's really not a whole lot of place that feels safe to walk in the street. But I like the fact that the street's been closed. I like outdoor dining. I don't think it's perfect. It is shabby. It's dirty downtown. But it's certainly added a lot to State Street and could be improved upon a lot. I do think we need to address bikes and uncontrolled bikes on State Street, and we need to figure out a way to use the space that's been opened up so that with cars not being on State Street in the most efficient way possible and the most fun way possible, and not just have it devoted to one use. Right now, it feels like it's all about bikes.
Interesting, yeah. And the e-bikes in particular.
E-bikes. I mean, I have a dog. I don't walk my dog on the street. We walk on the sidewalk now because it just doesn't feel safe, but I feel like I should be able to walk on the street.
Okay.
I think we really need to look at bringing more housing into the downtown area. And when I say housing, I mean housing for all income levels, not just high-end housing, but housing for people who want to work downtown, or housing for people who want to live downtown in smaller spaces. And I think that's a way to really invigorate downtown and make it a more 24/7 living environment. And then I think we need to figure out what to do with the vacant spaces, particularly the large spaces in Paseo Nuevo. Given the changes in office and retail, you know, it's hard to know what the best solution is other than tear them down and start over.
What do you think about that idea of educational institutions, if we could lure them into the space?
Yeah.
Kind of interesting idea.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, good. Thank you. All right, Hillary.
All right. Well, I agree with a lot of what folks have said, but I think so. I'll try to mention some other things. I think having it closed has been great. Really much safer way to get around. Certainly on foot and actually on bike as well. The thing in my vision for State Street is that there will be places to alight, right? Places to rest, sit around and people watch for free. So you don't have to pay, you don't have to buy a thing to exist downtown and enjoy yourself. So really trying to avoid, and we did what we had to do at the beginning of the pandemic, but really trying to make sure we don't fully just privatize a ton of public space. I think that's really important to keep in mind. From a transportation perspective, we really have to account for all modes downtown and give everyone space. And so mixing, like there have to be bikes on State Street, but they should have their own lane, right? That people aren't going to wander into. As a person who bikes on State Street, I'm scared of the pedestrians too, right? So having those conflicts, trying to minimize the conflicts. And then the thing that's been missing throughout the pandemic is public transit circulating downtown. People have lost, for a couple reasons, have lost a good way to get downtown. And any successful downtown I've been to has good public transit serving it to get around. One more thing. The history of our downtown of our city didn't start in 1925, didn't start when the Spanish got here. I just want to make sure, as great as Europe is, as great as all that, there's much more to our community. And there were people here before all of those things that have a culture that are still here. And I want to make sure that's something that we keep an eye on. And there's people who are here now that don't have any ties to any of that. And so if it's a community for everyone who's lived here throughout history and now and into the future, I want to make sure that we're not just freezing the town in amber, 97 years ago, but that we're actually, acknowledging everything that's happened before that and since. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, we go back millennia, not just centuries. Good point. Suzanne, you're oh no. Okay, Megan, you're here. Okay.
Thank you. I should know better than to bring the baby to a meeting during the witching hour, so I'm going to be very quick. I agree with, I think, everything that Diane and Hillary both said. So seconding pretty much everything. A couple of points. I think what I've liked the most is the way that the experience of being on State Street has been become referential to our lived environment, in the sense that when you're there, you are outside, you're experiencing the elements. It's such a gift to live here in this weather with these views. And to be inside, to me, it's just always been incongruous with what it means to live in Santa Barbara. So to me, to be on State Street now feels much more reflective of my experience of this city, to be outside and to have that sort of communal experience. That said, I would very much like to see in the future that there's opportunity to go and be on State Street without, exactly as Hillary said, needing to be going to a restaurant or spending money, not even just spending money, but like there's more to it than
other
just
reasons.
Yes, exactly. I think a lot about Bryant Park, which I love and spent a lot of time in for reasons just to go to it.
Just to be in the
Just to
space.
be. And so that's really, I think, part of my own personal vision. What I think has not or is not working, part of what's not working is we have a lot of blocks that seem sort of random. There's nothing there. You go, 2 blocks where it's very happening. There's a lot of energy. And then 3 blocks where the energy really dips. And there's no connection. There's nothing that from one block to the next that you can really say, like, I'm here for something. It feels a little bit, not a little bit, I would say very disjointed. And there's
discontinuity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's certain blocks on that. I'm looking at this map where there's nothing to do there and there's nothing to see.
Okay.
So that's a concern for me. I agree with safety. And yes, seconding Diane and Hillary, I'll just.
When you talk about State Street today, do you think the closure has helped you to realize some of those desired qualities you talked about at the beginning?
Yes, I attribute it entirely to the closure, frankly. I
Well-
mean,
I live right off of State Street. And so for me, the experience of being there has been very different before and after, and feels much more reflective of my Santa Barbara experience to be on a closed street than it did when it was open. That said, I agree,
It's
with the
got work to-
aesthetics and
There's work to be done. Yeah. Okay.
I'm obviously a booster for the closed street, so I don't want to go too far. But.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jack. We'll see you. Hopefully he won't be off to college when we're done with the plan, then we're in trouble. But I know the mayor wouldn't want to wait that long, but Suzanne.
Okay, so I have 3 points that I pretty much want to focus on. The first one is piggybacking on what a lot of the comments that were made about public space and being outdoors. And I think that the closure of State Street and the ability to be outdoors, has been a positive thing. And I think that moving forward, utilizing the outdoor spaces, the public spaces that are there, such as paseos and plazas, which are scattered throughout the city and can be connected to the street as a way of wayfinding and giving that downtown area some structure. I would really like to see the plan utilizing these public spaces that exist and maybe creating some new ones.
There are a lot of interesting paseos and
Yes.
byways, passageways that are a little bit hard to find somehow.
Yes. And so the downtown experience can be an experiential experience. It doesn't have to be linear, like one street.
Very good.
So
And
that-
actually, a lot of great downtowns, they are a source of constant discovery. You keep finding new things that you
Right.
didn't, even if you've been there for years.
Right. We have interesting landmarks, the courthouse, which is not far.
Right.
We have De La Guerra Plaza.
Yeah.
There's it goes on and on. So
Yeah.
you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to also second is about the circulation. And, there's pedestrians, there's bicycles, and like what Hillary was saying, public transportation, the shuttles have been sort of forgotten. And I hate to say it, but the car is still an important aspect. It's not going to go away. And a lot of people use their cars to get to places, and there needs to be some integration of somehow getting the car involved, or has sort of a hierarchy of circulation and stressing safety and accessibility.
Excellent.
So
Okay.
the car is still something we got to talk about. And then lastly, I just wanted to say
We'll
that
make an accommodation there. We'll make an accommodation somehow for that.
I
Okay.
mean, there are a lot of parking, which is actually quite, with the way the city planned is there's parking structures nearby in strategic places. So that is still something that we have. And the last thing I wanted to say is that Megan has kind of said it, that State Street is very diverse. There's different parts in
Sub
it.
areas.
Yeah, there's sub areas. And so the solution is not a one size fits all. And we just need to recognize the differences and what those needs are.
Okay, very good. If I could maybe leave Dave and Ken to the end. Mike, why don't you go next? We're trying to get everybody in here.
I think I'm pretty short and sweet. Really, Peter and Michael's comments resonated most with me. You keep writing that word experiential up there. That's a little millennial for me. Megan will yell, "Hey, boomer," as soon as she hears that. But I like the flexible. I think, thank you. I think we're generally content poor, and historically we've relied upon the look of a building to be the only attractant, and that what I would like to see in the future would be programmable and content flexible ability on the street, so that we're not constrained by our attractiveness being defined to a brick and mortar, something that we have stuff going on there. You mentioned, I think before, sense of place. I think would it be more appropriate to be plural senses of place? Something also, I think, to what Hillary says better than me, but to me, it's like do I want to go axe throwing or do I want to go watch a movie? Okay, so that one probably attracts my kids, one probably attracts me, and I think both of those should be present in tomorrow's downtown.
Actually, you can do axe throwing in St. Helena in Napa.
You can
County.
here now too. Just
Yeah.
opened over the weekend.
They have that. Okay.
And then a couple of things that aren't really clear to me on that map is to make sure that we, even though they're in the work zone, the project boundary, is that everything we're doing is integrating with De La Guerra Plaza's project, with the Library Plaza project, and then the big wart that's not on there is the underpass coming up under 101. There's no way that anything we're talking about can just continue to ignore that dead zone. It's the separation between what right now is the more thriving part of State Street, and then keeping you from getting to what tomorrow's thriving part of State Street would be. I'd like us to consider zones and building off of existing strengths. So we obviously have a food and beverage zone in the 500 block. We have a historical or cultural zone as you go up near to the Presidio and the Historical Museum. And then we have an arts and culture zone as you get up to the theaters. And while we have gaps in between those, it's not, I don't think it's really necessary to redefine those gaps, but work off the strengths that exist and figure out how to expand those zones.
Yeah, and extend them and connect them.
And then housing. I think housing is so much of the answer to putting people on the ground 24/7, as somebody has already said.
Put our economists to work on this key land use. That's an excellent point. Okay, Marge.
Thank you. Mike, I thought your comments were perfect about the zones, and Michael Becker, I couldn't agree with you more. I love the historic nature of downtown Santa Barbara, and you can build something that is respectful of the historic nature, but also represents this time. The thing that always comes up in my mind is San Pancras Station in London. And it's where big trains come in that go under
the channel.
Yeah. And this is one of the most historic districts and one of the most historic buildings. And they redid the building and added building with a modern historic touch. And it is really beautiful. And I think when you say the words modern, start to think that, start building steel and glass and 10, 20, 15-story buildings. But I think that things can be done tastefully, because I have seen so many buildings in downtown that are not contextual to the design guidelines, but they're referential because they have a red tile roof and a white stucco face. And I think it's a disservice to our downtown. One of the things that I think we have to think about first and foremost, because we can build and design and do all the pretty pictures, but if we don't have a strategy for homelessness in this city, nothing is going to work. Number one. Number two, I think that it's so important in your review of this downtown that Paseo Nuevo is looked at, because I think it's an obsolete 80s mall that should be torn down. And I think the city sits in a very, very good position as it relates to that mall. And I think that the economic development that you have could help create strategies for city council and the city in how to execute a plan for Paseo Nuevo. Sustainability. We have a lot of buildings that the city owns that we could put solar panels on and start generating power. And I think also that every single block should be looked at in terms of land use, because we may want to have light manufacturing downtown, which would mean a winery could come down and do something in the downtown, which now they can only do in a certain area.
Well, would you consider maker space?
Right,
That type
exactly,
of
maker space.
Artisans making.
Well, and that's
artifacts.
when I think about Paseo Nuevo, I think about an opportunity to design something that could be really powerful because it sits right in the heart.
Mhm.
And it sits sort of on a block that isn't really dynamic, other than Paseo Nuevo. I mean, there's not a lot of stuff going on like in the 500 block and up. But I agree with Diane and Hillary. You know, there are blocks that just nothing's happening and it's closed. And I think we need to look at the downtown in terms of these three blocks are closed, then it opens up, and then these three blocks are closed. And kind of take a look at how we do that, and look at also the side streets and how those play a role. In you know, Boulder, the side streets have become very vibrant as they play into the collection of downtown, you know, that downtown closed area. So those are the things that I don't like about what's happening downtown are the e-bikes going 30 miles an hour down the center of the road. I think it's very dangerous. The e-bikes have kind of taken over, and I think that's going to be something that city council is going to have to deal with at some point. I love having the bicycles downtown. I love also having the pedestrian nature of, you know, that walkable space. I like to walk in the middle of the street. I don't want to walk on the sidewalk. And so, you know, I kind of take my life in my hands when I'm walking down the center. I think that closing the downtown multiple blocks really created a dynamic opportunity. And I think now the business owners just need the rules. They need design guidelines. And I hope that the city will work with the downtown folks in order to do that, because I think I have heard so many tourists, European tourists, that have come here multiple times say, wow, it's a work in progress, but it's wonderful to be able to sit in this environment, you know, in this beautiful weather that we have, and enjoy Santa Barbara, and not just enjoy Santa Barbara at the beach. And housing. You've got to house the people that work here.
So when you said focus on the cross streets too, you reminded me of Burlington, Vermont. Have you ever been there?
Oh, yes.
You know how they have the pedestrian street, and then the cross streets form an interesting relationship. Cars stop and they negotiate with the pedestrians going through, and it's a very interesting dance.
And public transportation on the side streets, dropping so that they can then go and walk.
Yeah, it's another interesting example. Just again, so we are learning and experimenting simultaneously. This is an action research project of sorts.
Right.
See, who hasn't gone? Kristen, and then over to you. Okay.
Well, I have a lot of the same things that other people have spoken about, but I did make some notes about my likes and don't likes. So I love the outdoor dining. I love everything about addressing our love of the outdoors, sort of as Megan talked about, and the great weather, and that we're finally getting to do more of that when we would have liked to all along. I love the twinkle lights. I know it's not all perfect yet, but I love that at night. I love that the businesses are so eclectic. Everybody gets to have their own little personality. I think walking block to block, you get to see that. And then people. The fact that there's people out now really makes all the difference. There are a few things I don't like. It's not clean. I don't like the smell. I'm not going to say the word, but you all know what I mean. It's just not clean. And I don't like the long blank spots that we've talked about. There's blocks where needs a little more love. I do have a little bit of a vision, which is, as you have said, a world-class destination of downtown vitality. And I love the zones that a couple people have talked about. I want to be able to feel when you're in the arts zone, to feel like you're in the art zone. When you're in the bar zone, be in the bar zone. When you're in the kids zone, maybe you're in the kids zone.
Family, yeah.
Family out, yeah.
Okay.
Of course, I believe we need a variety of businesses. In the olden days, you wanted all your whole downtown to just be retail, retail, retail. Now we need such a variety of experience and food and beverage and retail and commercial. I also have a vision for robust outdoor programming, as has been mentioned, including, I mean, the festivals we talked about, but cooking classes, wine tasting, tequila tasting, skateboards, dogs, kids. We can do this, I think, safely so that there's these activities outside that people get to participate in. And then from the chamber's perspective, we'd love to support the high-tech business industry in our downtown. These folks want to work there. They want to live there. They want to be there. They have money and time, and we'd like to have them. And then my last thing is I would love to see have a vision of a very cute shuttle, train, or trolley.
Okay. Well, a lot of what you said, you put the word experiential in front of it as a modifier, and it creates that activation, that interest that you can't get online. You know, I like to call it the antidote to the digital world we live in is called analog, real stuff. So that's an interesting perspective. So let's see, who did we not get? Ken, okay.
Well, not much more need be said. So many good ideas from my committee members, but I'll start with one that I do not subscribe to. My friend Mr. Lenbeck talked about some things that were moving in the right direction on State Street before COVID. And if there was anything moving in the right direction, I didn't see it. I mean, I was down here almost every day for 25 years, and everything that I cared about was moving in the wrong direction. And yes, it is true. There are some things that look a bit shabby, but for energetically, COVID has been nothing but an opportunity and an improvement. Mm-hmm. And whether it's families down there with their little kids learning to ride a bike on State Street, and people of all ages, and tourists and locals coming back downtown, locals who I haven't seen downtown in a long time. I think this has really given us a vision of an opportunity to redo some things. Mm-hmm. And the thing I would love to see is, I want to talk about civic life. Santa Barbara actually has a very rich civic life. We have extraordinary nonprofit organizations and philanthropic organizations and social organizations. They just don't connect very much with downtown. Mm-hmm. And with the right spaces for convening, coming together, celebrating together, and then partnering with many of these organizations. There's so much social capital to draw upon. And so when people who've talked about, whether it's stages or full-time festival spaces, and a question that I'm holding is that it feels to me like programming is a key part of what's going to be successful. Mm-hmm. And just a question I'm holding is, I don't know if we can have vital programming over 8 blocks. I just don't know. So I would like this to be the length. I would like this closure to be the length that we can support and make vital. And if the closure is too long, I'm open to it not being the length that it is.
You don't want the energy to dissipate or leak out.
People have talked about the dead zones. Yeah. There are dead zones, there are dead blocks, and frankly, there are dead buildings that sometimes I think are just haunted. But when you go over there, you can just feel it's like your soul being sucked away. Okay. So we have to address those in some way.
So would you say, or would you admit, though, like in regards to some of the architecture, that the parklets are indeed makeshift? They're not very well built. They're maybe not sturdy. They could be improved from an aesthetic standpoint, regardless of what style they were designed for. Would you agree?
Again, to me, what they've brought is people downtown, and several people have made the point, is outside. I mean, Santa Barbara should be an outside town. Right. This is so
you're looking beyond what they look like materially to what they produce.
Absolutely.
Yeah, understood.
Absolutely.
Okay, there's an important distinction there. Dave?
Yeah, try to be brief. I like the closure. I like the parklets. I even like kids doing wheelies on Lower State Street. I don't like the dirtiness. I don't like the shabbiness of the temporary nature of some of the parklets.
Yeah, you can get a sliver from some.
Oh man, it's serious, isn't that
Yeah.
right? And I really don't like the e-bikes, the big e-bikes going 35 miles an hour on the street.
Yeah.
My desire, again, I go back to my mantra. I like downtown as a sense of place, history, and celebration.
Mhm.
We can capture those characteristics and what we come up with. We've captured Santa Barbara. I can argue with my friends here relative to the history and blah, blah, right? But Santa Barbara has a sense of place and it's working. It's working all over the world. You go someplace and you say you're from Santa Barbara, it isn't a glass and metal building. It is Santa Barbara. It has a sense of place.
It has an identity.
It has an identity.
Yes.
I like the idea. And again, I've always supported educational institutions and activities downtown. I think it's one of the economic drivers of the region.
Mhm.
I think that we essentially no longer just a retail corridor, but use the street as public space for public activities. I want to see that be temporal because I want to be able to see it night and day activities going on. Multi-generational. If it isn't multi-generational, we're missing the future. I'd like to, and this is a little detail, I'd like to see downtown electric microgrid that in fact we're tying together the downtown electronically. When utilities have gone out and the restaurants have gone down, we all know it's really been a big issue.
Mhm.
But we've got all these public spaces and private roofs that we could, with our own, clean energy program downtown, tie downtown all together in that regard. Lastly, downtown is a neighborhood. It's always been downtown, but with all housing, let's make downtown a neighborhood in that regard.
Yeah, I've heard the word housing a few times this
You bet.
afternoon, so that's interesting from a land use planning standpoint. We've heard some interesting uses to get beyond just a retail, not to exclude it, but to have certain types of retail and all of these other uses that people have mentioned will add vitality and help to achieve a true 24-hour environment down there. So I think we're doing good on time. We do want to talk about the community process. And so we're going to make a little bit of a transition here. They're going to put additional paper up for our screen, makeshift screen, so we can have the two screens going for our Zoom audience as well as for all of you here in the room. And so we'll just bring that up here. Okay, you guys are ready with that? Why don't you bring that one, McCool? Yeah. Okay.
So I think all of it is based, everything we have talked about and some of you have already mentioned, it has to be based on robust community engagement. And we would love to hear your feedback. Who are all the audiences we should keep in mind? We clearly began to hear some of the ideas, but it'll be great to get more feedback. We are including all sorts of engagement, and we want also to brainstorm what all those ideas could be it more traditional in-person workshops. I'd love to see a huge map of State Street laid out block by block so people can walk on the ground and experience each and every space. But we also want to do more innovative engagement, which essentially is really going to the people as opposed to always expecting people to come to us. Maybe close certain streets besides State Street, sit in the middle of the street and reimagine what that street could be. I can tell you, based on working on different cities, you come up with totally different ideas when you're actually designing in the middle of a street as opposed to at a desk, because you can experience the space too. Part of the other engagement we like to consider is also maybe looking at some of the stores. It may be the empty stores or other stores where there's a lot of foot traffic. Again, trying to capture people's opinions and thoughts and ideas all through the different milestones of the project. Yes, we would like to engage with different stakeholders, of course, this committee, but we are also looking to engage with a lot of, it may be business owners, property owners, but also the workers working in restaurants, all in retail areas, people whose voices are usually not heard. We like to hear from them, and not just within the project area. I think some of you mentioned that this is a citywide exercise. This is the city's downtown. So we would be going to different parts of the city and engaging them. I always say, don't forget the children. You already have started to talk about it. We are designing for our future generation. So they also, in my experience, 25 plus experience, kids also have the best ideas. They don't care about realities, but they also come up with very innovative, creative ideas. As part of our engagement, we'll also like to explore, not just always looking at posters and drawings, but can we get our hands dirty, look at different solutions? I think some of you mentioned maybe experimenting with different ideas, and that's part of our initial community engagement strategy, is to start to think of more innovative ways to engage with people too. And it could be just doing some murals on some of the walls. It could be temporary or permanent in nature. Essentially, the more people begin to engage beyond traditional exercises, the more creative the ideas we begin to hear. Yes, we will complement it with virtual meetings, be it hybrid meetings or just Zoom meetings. Sometimes we'll be doing meetings. We are thinking of doing meetings in just Spanish, because that encourages the Spanish speaking folks to engage more freely in these workshops too. And then a key component of it, again, virtual, but also in person, is going to be doing community engagement surveys. And our surveys are not just like typical questions. We actually ask people to not just suggest their ideas, but also mark what idea where. Like a lot of folks are talking about Paseo Nuevo. What about the other sections, certain blocks, certain corners that begin to resonate with people, and what kind of improvements they would like to see? We always map them out and add the different layers to come up with different concepts that the folks are telling us. And of course, all of these surveys are going to be complemented with in-person surveys, going to people, engaging with them, and again, talking to people whose voices have not been heard in different languages, if that's what it takes to make this happen. And with that, we will take a break, or should we go straight to roles and responsibilities? Okay, so I think a key thing that we all have been hearing is what is the role and responsibility of the various folks taking part in this project. And the first, of course, is the city, which is leading the project and providing technical information that is vital to the success of this project, working with the consultant team on different program activities, and also making sure we are talking to all the audiences and the stakeholder groups, and also the broader community where needed. The city is going to be conducting additional outreach to complement the efforts that the consultants that we'll be doing. And then coordinating the effort with different departments within the city and conducting general coordination on different programs. Just this 2-hour walking tour this morning helped us understand from different departments all the great programs and the initiatives that are happening. The aim would be to build upon them. Identifying city abilities and constraints for implementation, operations, and maintenance is going to be critical. And then working, like I already mentioned, with the different city departments, and hopefully conducting pilot projects to help inform the master plan. I think in some ways this is an experiment or a way to explore different things to see what would work and not. The 2 key responsibilities of us as consultants is going to be, of course, first, as we have started to do so today, is listen. facilitate and engage with the community and the stakeholders, and make sure that we develop all key elements of the plan, including the overall community vision, the community-based improvement concepts, be it initial concepts, preliminary concepts, or final concepts that the community would like to see, and then making sure they're based on implementable strategies. Finally, a key part of our role is going to be providing technical support to develop community-generated concepts and refining them based on the feedback we get from the stakeholders and community. The community is at the forefront, and they are participating in all elements of the public engagement process. They are going to help us come up with the overall community vision and identify their preliminary and preferred improvement concepts. What is your role and responsibility? I think you all have talked at great length, and we want to build upon that, provide input during development of conceptual design and implementation, listen and engage with community throughout the master plan process, provide updates on the progress. And it's very critical that each and every one of you retain and become the ambassador for the project. And then, of course, you all are tasked to make a recommendation to the city council on the final plan that should be hopefully approved by the council, because the buck does stop with the council members and the council. But seriously, the council is providing critical guidance on overall vision and preferred improvement concepts. They will help us identify any necessary elements or requirements that the plan should include. And then last but not the least, they have to approve the plan. And then just stepping back before we open for discussion, I think the SSAC has already started and it articulated the operating principles. As a committee, we want to bring that back because it's an important milestone to be future-oriented, ambitious and practical, big picture learning, being inclusive, allowing for healthy conflict that allows a lot of collaboration, and then partner with staff as well as council while it's still ensuring transparency. And we do have individuals that will allow for learning, being respectful, mindful ambassador. So what is the overall project schedule? Well, we have multiple phases of this project. The very first is where we are in right now, which is existing conditions and vision. Daniel is just handing out the 11 by 17 handout that shows all the individual detail, but they're going to be key milestones all along the project, started with the existing condition vision, coming up with an overall urban design framework that in turn will help us create a community-based preliminary as well as preferred concepts that will then be incorporated in a public draft plan, and that will then go through an approval process with different commissions as well as the city council. There's a lot of detail out here, which begins to show how there is each individual milestone has multiple activities, like I mentioned, engaging with the stakeholders, the communities, pop-up events, community forums. And then I do want to stress, you cannot read it, but there are two very critical community survey processes that will happen both at the visioning phase as well as generating preliminary as well as preferred concepts. All of this is laid out in the plan. The critical thing to keep also in mind as we begin to show with this highlighted section is that at 9 times all through this process, we will coming to you all to make sure that we are reviewing the key deliverables, getting your feedback that then can be incorporated in materials that are shown in subsequent community forums. And with that, I think we would love to hear your feedback on the overall community engagement.
Okay. Any questions, thoughts, additions to put into the mix here? We have Marge and Michael. Why don't you go first?
So really great to see your thoughts and how you're planning to execute on this. I think it's also important, it was a unanimous vote at City Council to move forward with a consultant and to hire a consultant. I think it's very important under the leadership of our mayor, Randy Rouse, that each and every council member is an ambassador for this process as well. It is of the utmost importance, I think, that the city sees a united front and that, as members of our city council, as members of this State Street Advisory Committee, we are all helping to educate the community. And I think that is how we have a successful master planning process.
This idea of the ambassadorship, not only SSAC members, but everybody connected with the city, trying
Absolutely.
to have the best possible process. It's open. We're trying to be transparent.
And we have to be positive. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to be positive about what the outcomes might be, could
Yeah.
be.
It's a complex undertaking.
It
to
is
say
a
the
complex
least.
undertaking, and it's going to take everybody on the same team rowing in the same direction. And I didn't say this earlier when I had my 2 minutes, but I do believe that the community outreach will be the single most important thing in addition to the beautiful drawings and ideas because we have such a diverse community.
Yeah.
And I think it could really create a dynamic plan. So I think that's very, very important.
Well stated. Thank you, Marge. Okay, Michael.
I appreciated the focus on reaching out to people of color, the Spanish language, and I think as a goal of the community process, and I agree 100% with Marge that this will be the public's plan that potentially try and match the demographic and economic characteristics of the city. There's some very rich people here, some very poor people here. We need to talk to both of them. We need to talk to people of all ages, all economic backgrounds, all colors, and just make sure that, if we have to readjust part of the way through because we're missing something, that we're willing to take that step and make sure we hear from everybody.
That's well said. Yeah. So the process is part of this product, in effect. Yeah. Thank you, Robin. The mic. Sorry. Yeah.
A robust plan. I love that you have people meeting in the street, experimenting in real time, and this robust community engagement exercise. What I'm curious about, and that wasn't mentioned, I'm sure that we'll get into it, is how this group and other aspects, how can we make sure we get people to those community engagement opportunities? Because I think this group can help bring those people to the table, but is not going to just happen overnight. We have to put a lot of energy into making sure that we get people to those different events and diverse types of people. And that's going to take thinking and planning as well.
Well, and each of you represent networks that, when combined, would reach a wide swath too. So we will need your help.
And plan to help. Thank you.
Okay.
Daniel,
Thank you.
Roxana up on the screen.
Oh, Roxanne. Okay.
Thank you so much. I just want to take a moment and say how much I've really enjoyed this this meeting. It's been a pleasure to hear the consultants and all that you are sharing with us today. I have a question about how can we as a committee be able to assist you in live time, get information, feedback, maybe comments or questions that we might encounter to you. Is there a direct way for us to communicate with you when that need might come up?
I think that's best handled by coming through tests.
So yes, so that for the State Street Advisory Committee, I will say, since even before the team got the contract, I've been talking with McCool and the team at least daily. So let me know, at least so far. So let me know if you have questions or comments that come through. We're trying to keep kind of one channel so that we can keep the communication coordinated.
So you're the
Send
point
it
of
through me.
contact, the
Yes,
POC.
That's just the point of contact.
Yeah.
I am the point of contact for the committee.
Okay, beautiful. So that's a great, thank you, Roxanne, for
Yes.
bringing up that question. Dave, did you have a comment or somebody else? Or okay, Hillary, go ahead.
So this to me is what'll make or break the whole thing, right? The engagement piece. I'm pretty obsessed with it. I do it as part of my job. I'm certainly not perfect. I haven't figured it out. I love to hear what happens in other places, what you've seen work. And, some of the things Michael brought up is it's like, I've seen so many surveys where it's like, is there one in Spanish? Sure. At the end of the day, you've got, 1,000 responses in English, 10 in Spanish. You go, well, we had one. And it's not just unacceptable, right? And so being truly ready to get down to where people are, right? Because you can have things on State Street and convince people to come out on a Saturday, on a weeknight or whatever. And we have to do those things. But that can't be it, right? And so, I've been trying to think of creative ways to frankly go into the neighborhoods that aren't downtown. Because there are a lot of people who say, they do use downtown, they go downtown for things, but some people go, there's nothing for me there. Nothing for my kids. There's nothing compelling, or we don't have money to hang out there, right? And so what the people who aren't there, the thing that's kind of just as important as people who you're going to bump into with an intercept survey downtown are people that aren't going. Why aren't they going? Now, some people have all kinds of like biases about things they've heard or they've read in the news or whatever, that it's just like a big scary place and someone might, experience homelessness near them. And that's just really, they just couldn't even see it, right? And so that's a certain kind of person. But also just people who are like, I just don't go down because there's nothing drawing me there, So finding them where they are, and they might not just be people who live in the city of Santa Barbara, right? So
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thinking about that from a community perspective of really trying to get as many people engaged in whatever flavor that they want to be engaged, but at least everyone will have known about it, been asked about it, be sick of it at the end, because we will have tried to get their input so many different ways.
It's not unrealistic to expect thousands and not just English speakers. We have ways of going deep into the community. And for example, there was one project up in agriculture country up north, and we wanted to talk to the farm workers and the families, and we don't have credibility, but we knew the people who did, and we activated them, and they brought a couple hundred people to a meeting, and they spoke in Spanish, and we had a great dialogue. I mean, that's just one way. We work through CBOs that have the credibility and the outreach already in place. That machinery we can tap into, and we intend to take full advantage of that.
And that was another thing I wanted to mention too, is, that works so well. And I think a lot of consultants are starting to kind of get that, right? Of like, we could come in from wherever and go, okay, tell us what you think.
No, they're not.
Why would anyone trust, somebody from, like people here are very not untrusting of people from out of town, which is
we have
silly, but I get it, right? If you have those,
we have a Native Nations building studio in MIG, and we have Native people that work for us, and they specialize in talking with those representatives and going into a culture that is otherwise maybe mistrustful for good reasons and aren't usually asked, or they're not truly respected for their ideas or opinions. And we need to go deep like that. As somebody mentioned, I think might have been you who said, people have been here for thousands of years, not just the last, appearance of the Europeans coming to North America, obviously. So there's deeper outreach that we can do, and that can inform the process in extremely valuable ways. And
and Tess, you can add to it. One of the key things that we are doing is that we do have a local CBO, Santa Barbara County Promotores Network, who are going to be they themselves have a master network of CBOs. So we are actually going to be working closely with them, and they are helping us identify what are the right events, what are the right ways to go to people, as opposed to us coming up with a standard list of this. And we are actually hoping to develop an overall calendar of events where we are going to existing events that the community goes to, as opposed to just have the community come to standalone events for us. And Tess, I don't know if you had.
Sure. Thanks,
Thank you.
Nicole. I think one just quick thing for this committee that, in my opinion, will be really helpful is starting to really brainstorm different groups and organizations that either you're connected with or you're aware of in the community that may have an interest, and truly everybody in this community has an interest in this project. So it would certainly help me as I'm coming up with a list, and the team in general. Please feel free to send your thoughts my way as I'm compiling a list. And then I think as we go down the road, it'll also be understanding the different connections that each of you all have in the community, and how can you help lift that up, or lift different community groups up to have a voice in this process.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Dave?
We got about 6 minutes left now. Nadra on the screen, and then Ken will be our last question.
Okay.
Nadra.
Hi, and I apologize. My internet is a little spotty, so I'm sorry if I freeze. And this is just an add-on to some of the comments, and I apologize if I didn't hear it, but just making sure that we do reach out to the Indigenous community in the area, to the Chumash, making sure that when we develop this master plan, that there is some aspect of land acknowledgement that is in the plan as well.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Ken.
Yeah, thanks. I want to really encourage you, like each person on this committee, we applied to be on this committee. We asked to be 15 months ago, and then we were selected, and we really haven't had a lot to do yet. So I want to encourage you also, city staff, to lean in and activating us and asking us for what you want. You know, getting people out to events, connecting you with groups, really whatever you want and need from us, and let us disappoint you, but don't be afraid to ask us to work. This is why we all signed up for this job, and this is the moment. And I don't expect you coming from out of town to come here and figure out our community and how to get connected in different ways. It's our job to do that with you.
Beautiful.
So ask us.
We will, and we're asking now.
Steph, you want any final comments before we try to get to wrap up?
I think that was really well said. I think just what Daniel said is we really are asking you right now. So my hope is that you will get in touch with me, I will get in touch with you if not, so we can start to have that conversation about what different groups, we may want to bring to the table, and how to get each of you involved in a different way.
Okay, we'll go to public comment. Greta?
You want me to fill out a blue form? Hi, I'm Fred Sweeney. I'm gonna touch on hopefully 5 things, 2 minutes, and I'll go as quickly as I can. One is, if you want to find out what the other side of this community looks like, you should have been at Our Lady of Church last Saturday, because that's where the people go that clean up our city and build our city. I'm of a mixed marriage, so we have our foot in both worlds. And my wife and I sat there and said, you don't see any folks that are sitting at this table at Our Lady. So you might use that as a source to get to the population. It's actually starts in this block and works that way. There are hundreds of people that are living behind houses and down alleyways. Second thing, I am some of you know, the architect for the Santa Barbara Airport. And I want to talk about the architecture element of this historic city. When we were assigned that project, the city council said, you will make it a Spanish building. It will not be a flying silver stainless steel glass enclosure. And a lot of my colleagues criticized me for taking the job. I'm now back there today, as of this morning, designing the new addition that's going to come, plus a huge parking structure, which is going to be a real dilemma. But what I'm telling you is there are ways for other architects, not just the dominant architect that has dominated State Street for many years, to do all the architecture. There are other architects. We are a town with more architects per square foot than any other city in the world. And I'm breaking my own rules because I'm saying don't listen to all of them, including myself. The other thing is 1924, getting back to your point, Dave, they brought in the Olmsted brothers to do a master plan for this city. Out of that came a lot of things, but the only thing that really got accomplished was what we see today on Carrillo Boulevard. That was a result of Olmsted's brothers' long-range plan for the parkways and the avenues in the city, including how State Street would go way out to Goleta, so forth and so on. Go back and look at that. It's a 47-page report. And then don't forget the issue with the density is that a lot of the locals are concerned about the density. You know what drives that? It's the view to those mountains. We're not Santa Barbara because we don't have those mountains. We're not Santa Barbara because we don't have that ocean. So the view corridors off all those side streets, you view those mountains. That's part of the luxury of sitting on State Street and enjoying the evening. It's because of those Santa Ynez Mountains. That creates Riviera. We can't lose fact. So the size, bulk, and scale issue on every block has got to need to account for that. In addition, dealing with the paseos and the side streets, and then finally, and we're in the wrong place to talk about this, but MTD cannot bring back those big buses, electric. Think about when we were kids and you'd go to Disneyland and you'd get on that little tram with 2 seats face both ways, got on and off, you didn't have to do a whole lot. It was small, it was scaled appropriately. But I do think that needs to go back. And then finally, Dave, the community is very confused about what's going on. You hit right on it. So part of your staff and city council's importance is to get that cleared up because it's going to continue to be confusion. And your 3 things, place, history, and celebration ought to be the key thing. And unfortunately, some of the press already left. But I think you need to focus on those 3 words as we share it with the community. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience here? Cliff, now's your opportunity. Greta, anybody online?
Just a reminder, if you'd like to make a public comment and you're joining online, please click the hand icon. If you're connecting by phone, press *9 to raise and lower your hand, and press *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And there are no raised hands. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. That takes us actually 6:01, not bad. Daniel, McCool, Ryan, thank you so much for today. And we're looking forward. We're looking forward to moving forward for the next period. So thank you all today. It's good to see you all again. And Tess will be in contact with you relative to our next meeting. And I think someone said it here. She'll be prodding us to other activities going on in the community so that we can all be involved. And please get out there and make our voices known. Robin. Okay, you guys got that? We're ready for a photo. We're going to be posting this and making sure we're kicking this sucker off. 2 hours.